Robert, on your first day 33 years ago, what were you doing? Were you actually on a rig and
Well,
sometimes in the office? But
on day one, or the reason I started it, because those are two different things.
well, either one's interesting. I mean, I'm speaking to guys who are listening that aren't where you are after 33 years. There's just tremendous wisdom and I'm sure trial and error and experience that's gotten you where you are. I like to have people, we like to ask people, when you started the business, what did you think a lot of sales would be? What were you thinking about when you drove around? Like, I'm thinking about, I got to get this job done. I got to get the threads fixed on that drill pipe, or so literally, how did you start? What were you thinking when you started the company? What were you doing?
Okay, I'll back up a little bit because I first went into drilling just because I found a job with a friend of mine's uncle in the summer of 1977. It was hard rock mining. That led me, I was going to go back to college, and I ended up meeting my wife. We got married, and so her dad was water well contractor up in Arizona. So I worked for him for a while.
But
That
you were
died.
on the drilling rig. You were
I was
drilling.
on, I was
Yeah.
on the drill rig. That died, and I ended up in the oil field in Oklahoma. So we moved to Oklahoma in March of '81. So was that 43 years ago? Okay, we moved to Oklahoma. I had about almost 10 years in the oil field, and it had some real good years, but then had some terrible years, some real bad years. And I tell everybody that, the only bragging rights I got out of the oil field is I was one of the few people that know that didn't have to file bankruptcy. We went through some rough stuff, but we didn't file bankruptcy. And so I ended up working for 3 years for a general engineering contractor out of Southern California, building stadium racetracks for ESPN Sports. And so we monster truck shows, Mickey Thompson off road, the
Really?
Supercross, all of those kind of things, truck and tractor pulls. We'd turn a stadium into a racetrack and then turn it back into a stadium. It was actually 3.5 years, but about 3 years into it, my wife said to me pretty clearly that, "Hey, cowboy, I'm not raising these kids alone. If you think we're going to stay married, you better get home." And it didn't take long. I got the message. And so I came home, had no idea what I was going to do. Zero. And some guys I went to church with, one of them had just gotten out of college with his hydrogeology degree, was telling me about this environmental world. And another one was a displaced oil and gas geologist that went to work at the same company. So I went out and I watched a few people drill. And I said, "Man, that's easier than anything I've ever done." So I went and made down payment on the drill rig. I remember driving that drill rig home, and I drove 18-wheeler from coast to coast. So, it wasn't no big deal for me. But I was more nervous driving that daggone drill rig home than anything in my life that I'd ever driven, because now I got to figure out how to pay for that sucker.
You owned it, right?
Yeah. And so we came home, we lived out in the country on 5 acres, and I hired a guy that had a little bit of environmental experience, but never been on a harder rig. And so we found out who was what was considered to be the best or most effective driller in the area, and had my geologist buddies come out. And so we talked and said, "Okay, so how long would it take to drill this particular hole?" So they told us, and so I told Homer, my new hand, I said, "We're not even going to try to get a job until we're at least as fast as the fastest person." So we drilled holes every day for a month out there in that bastard, plugged them, and
Just learning how to do it.
he just kept working and getting better and getting better. And so our first job, we went to Okmulgee, Oklahoma. It was a Brown Derby gas station that already had contractors out there that couldn't get it drilled. They thought they were going to have to air drill. It was so hard. So we went out there equipped to air drill, but we went and we thought it was going to be a 3-day job, and we knocked it out the first day. And the client was so happy, and that was the old coastal refineries. I don't know if you guys remember them. They were huge. They had gas stations everywhere. Well, they pretty much latched onto us, and we drove that drill rig to Blue Flats, or up Nebraska, running Nebraska line, went to Cherokee, Iowa, Storm Lake, Iowa, went to Metropolis, Illinois, home of Superman. We drove that rig everywhere. And as we got more stuff done, we'd have more people call us up about things that people couldn't get done. So all of a sudden, we're in a whole different vein. All my oil field experience, my hard rock mining, my water drilling rig experience, where I was just looking for a job. I was just trying to pay the bills back then. All of that became an education that it just opened the door, and we became the problem solvers. Just rest is history.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a perfect story.